The starship Horizon drifted through the empty space between two dying suns. Lieutenant Minho stood at the observation window of the bridge and watched the strange orange light paint shadows across the metal walls. He had been awake for 16 hours. His eyes were tired, but sleep would not come to him tonight. Captain Yuna's voice came through the speakers. "All crew, we have detected a distress signal from Sector 7. Minho, take a shuttle and investigate. Bring Jiwoo with you." Minho pressed the communication button. "Understood, Captain." He walked through the narrow corridors of the ship. The Horizon was not a large vessel. It carried only 20 crew members, all of them Korean scientists and soldiers sent by Earth to explore the far edges of known space. They had been traveling for 3 years now. 3 long years away from home, from family, from the simple comfort of blue skies and green trees. Jiwoo was already waiting at the shuttle bay. She was the ship's engineer, a small woman with quick hands and an even quicker mind. Her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and grease stained her fingers. "Another distress call," she said. "This is the 3rd one this month." Minho nodded. "The galaxy is full of broken ships and lost travelers." They climbed into the shuttle, a compact vessel barely large enough for 4 people. Minho took the pilot's seat, while Jiwoo sat beside him, already checking her scanner equipment. The flight to Sector 7 took 40 minutes. As they approached the source of the signal, Minho felt his stomach tighten. The wreckage floated in the darkness like the skeleton of some great beast. Pieces of metal spun slowly, catching the distant starlight. Whatever this ship had been, it was destroyed now. "No life signs," Jiwoo said quietly. Minho guided the shuttle closer. "We should still look. Someone sent that signal." They put on their spacesuits and stepped out into the void. The silence of space was always strange to Minho. No sound at all. Just the rhythm of his own breathing inside his helmet. The wreckage was scattered across a wide area. Minho moved carefully from piece to piece, looking for survivors, for bodies, for any sign of what had happened here. The ship's design was unfamiliar. The metal had a strange blue color, and the symbols carved into it belonged to no language he recognized. "This is alien," Jiwoo said through the radio. "Not any species we have met before," Minho agreed. In their 3 years of travel, they had encountered 7 different alien species. Some were friendly, some were not. But all of them had been documented by earlier human explorers. This was something new. He floated toward the largest piece of wreckage, what might have been the main cabin of the ship. The walls were torn open, exposing the dark interior. Minho turned on his flashlight and looked inside. At first, he saw nothing but destruction. Broken furniture, shattered screens, strange objects he could not identify. Then, his light fell upon something small. Huddled in the corner, Minho moved closer. His heart began to beat faster. It was a creature. A tiny creature. No bigger than his hand. It had scales that shimmered violet and purple in the beam of his flashlight. 2 small wings pressed flat against its body. A long tail curled around itself. And when it lifted its head, Minho saw 2 golden eyes staring up at him with pure terror. A dragon. It looked exactly like the dragons from old Earth stories. But it was real. It was alive, and it was wounded. "Jiwoo," Minho whispered. "Come here." Slowly, Jiwoo floated over and looked into the cabin. She gasped. "What is that?" "I think it is a baby," Minho said. "A baby dragon." The creature trembled. A thin line of blue liquid ran from a wound on its side. It made a small sound, something between a whimper and a chirp. The sound broke Minho's heart. "We cannot leave it here," he said. Jiwoo hesitated. "Minho, we do not know what it is. It could be dangerous. Captain Yuna will not be happy." "Look at it," Minho said. "It is dying. It is scared. It is alone." He reached out his hand slowly, carefully. The dragon pressed itself harder into the corner. Its golden eyes were wide with fear. Minho stopped moving. He stayed still. his hand extended. Waiting. I will not hurt you, he said softly. He knew the creature could not understand his words, but maybe it could understand his voice, his tone, his intention. Long seconds passed. The dragon watched him. Minho did not move. He barely breathed. Then, slowly, the tiny creature uncurled itself. It took one small step toward his hand, then another. Its scales caught the light, beautiful even covered in dust and blood. When it finally touched his glove, Minho felt something strange. A warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he could not explain. The dragon climbed onto his palm. It was so light, almost weightless. It looked up at him and made that chirping sound again. But this time, it did not sound scared. It sounded almost hopeful. Minho brought the creature close to his chest and opened his suit slightly at the neck, just enough to create a pocket of warmth. The dragon crawled inside without hesitation. It pressed itself against his uniform, against the place where his heart beat. I think it trusts you, Jiwoo said. There was wonder in her voice. Minho looked down at the small lump beneath his suit. I will not break that trust. They returned to the shuttle in silence. Minho moved carefully, always aware of the tiny passenger resting against his chest. When they sat down, he kept one hand over the spot where the dragon lay. The journey back to the horizon felt longer than before. Minho spent the whole time thinking about what he had found, about what he had done. Captain Yuna had strict rules about bringing unknown creatures onto the ship. There were good reasons for those rules. Safety, health, the risk of alien diseases. But when he looked down and saw the gentle rise and fall of the dragon's breathing, he knew he had made the right choice. Some rules were meant to be broken. When the shuttle docked with the horizon, Jiwoo touched his arm. I will not tell the captain. Not yet. But you need to figure out what you are going to do with that thing. Minho nodded. Thank you, Jiwoo. He walked through the corridors of the ship, trying to look normal. His heart raced with every step. At any moment, someone might notice the strange shape under his uniform. Someone might ask questions, but no one did. He made it to his quarters and closed the door behind him. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. Minho sat on his bed and carefully opened his uniform. The dragon crawled out and sat on his chest, looking around the small room with curious eyes. Its wound still bled, but more slowly now. I need to help you, Minho said. I need to make you better. The dragon tilted its head, as if trying to understand. Minho smiled. We will figure this out together. I promise. Outside his window, the stars continued their endless dance. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a bond had begun to form. A bond between a human soldier and a tiny creature from a destroyed world. A bond that would change everything. 3 days passed since Minho brought the dragon onto the horizon. 3 days of hiding, of sneaking food from the cafeteria, of lying to his friends. The guilt sat heavy in his stomach, but every time he looked at the tiny creature, he knew he could not do anything else. The dragon's wound had closed on the second day. Minho did not understand how. He had cleaned it carefully with water and wrapped it with cloth from his spare uniform, but when he checked the next morning, the skin had sealed itself completely. Only a thin silver line remained to show where the injury had been. You heal fast, Minho told the dragon. It sat on his pillow, watching him with those golden eyes. That is good. Very good, the creature chirped. It had started making that sound whenever Minho spoke to it. He liked to think it was trying to answer him. Feeding the dragon was more difficult. Minho tried everything. He brought meat from the kitchen. He brought vegetables. He brought strange alien fruits that the ship had collected from various planets. The dragon sniffed each offering, then turned away with a disappointed sound. By the third day, Minho was worried. The creature had not eaten anything. It was growing weaker. Its scales, once bright violet, now looked dull and gray. Please, Minho begged. You must eat something. The dragon crawled across the bed and pressed itself against his hand. It nuzzled his fingers, making a soft purring sound. But it did not eat. That evening, there was a knock on his door. Minho's blood turned cold. He quickly picked up the dragon and hid it under his blanket. "Come in." The door opened. Captain Yuna stood in the doorway. She was a tall woman with sharp features and sharper eyes. Nothing escaped her notice. She ran the horizon with perfect discipline, and everyone respected her. Everyone also feared her. Just a little bit. "Lieutenant," she said, "may I enter?" Minho stood up straight. "Of course, Captain." Yuna walked into the room. Her eyes moved across every surface, taking in every detail. Minho tried to keep his face calm. He tried not to look at the blanket. "I have been receiving reports," Yuna said. "Strange reports. Extra food missing from the kitchen. Strange sounds coming from this corridor at night. Jiwoo acting nervous whenever I ask about your investigation of the wreckage." Minho felt sweat forming on his back. "Captain, I can explain." "Then explain." The blanket moved. A small chirping sound came from beneath it. Yuna's eyes locked onto the bed. Her expression did not change. She walked forward and pulled back the blanket. The dragon looked up at her. Its golden eyes were wide and innocent. It chirped again. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Minho prepared himself for anger, for punishment, for the order to throw the creature out the airlock. "It is beautiful," Yuna said quietly. Minho blinked. "Captain?" Yuna sat on the edge of the bed. She studied the dragon with an expression Minho had never seen on her face before. Softness. Wonder. "Where did you find it?" Minho told her everything. The wreckage. The destroyed alien ship. The tiny creature hiding in the corner. Wounded and scared. He told her about the 3 days of hiding, the failed attempts to feed it, his growing fear that it would die. When he finished, Yuna was silent for a while. Then she reached out one finger and touched the dragon's head gently. The dragon closed its eyes and leaned into her touch. It made that purring sound again. "It trusts humans," Yuna said. "That is interesting. Most alien creatures fear us. I think it knows we want to help," Minho said. Yuna stood up. "You should have told me immediately. The rules exist for good reasons. I know, Captain. I am sorry. But," she continued, "I understand why you did not. I would have done the same thing." Minho felt relief wash over him. "So we can keep it? For now. But we need to solve the feeding problem. A creature that does not eat will not survive." She walked to the door, then paused. "I will send Taeho to examine it. He is our medical officer. Perhaps he can help." After she left, Minho sat back on the bed. The dragon crawled into his lap and looked up at him. He laughed softly and scratched its head. "You are very good at making friends," he told it. "The captain never smiles. But she smiled at you." Leader. An hour later, Taeho arrived. He was a young man with round glasses and gentle hands. He had joined the horizon straight out of medical school, eager to explore the universe and discover new forms of life. Now he had his chance. "Oh my," he said when he saw the dragon. "This is remarkable." He spent the next 2 hours examining the creature. He took measurements. He studied its scales, its eyes, its tiny teeth. He used every scanner and device he had. The dragon sat patiently through all of it, occasionally chirping or looking at Minho for reassurance. "Its biology is completely unique," Taeho said finally. "I have never seen anything like it. The cellular structure, the energy patterns. This creature is special. Can you figure out why it will not eat?" Minho asked. Taeho pushed his glasses up his nose. "I have a theory. Look at this." He showed Minho a screen with complex diagrams. "This creature does not get energy from food the way we do. It absorbs energy directly from living beings through physical contact." Minho looked down at the dragon. "It absorbs energy? Not in a harmful way. Think of it like warmth. We give off body heat all the time. This creature absorbs that heat and converts it into nutrition. It literally feeds on closeness." That is why it always wants to touch me, Minho realized. Exactly. But simple touch is not enough for full nutrition. The energy transfer works best when the creature feels safe and connected. It needs emotional warmth as much as physical warmth. Minho picked up the dragon and held it close. It immediately pressed itself against his chest, right over his heart. So if I hold it, you are feeding it right now, Tejo said with a smile. The more love and care you give it, the stronger it will become. Over the next few days, Minho did exactly that. He carried the dragon everywhere. He tucked it into his uniform while he worked on the bridge. He let it sleep on his pillow at night. He talked to it constantly, telling it stories about Earth, about his childhood, about his dreams. The dragon's scales grew bright again. Its energy returned. It started to explore his quarters, climbing up the walls with its tiny claws, chasing shadows with its tail. But there was one thing it loved most of all. Minho discovered it by accident. He was sitting at his desk, writing a report, when the dragon climbed up his back. He felt its tiny claws gripping his uniform as it moved higher and higher. Then it reached the space between his shoulder blades and stopped. The dragon curled into a ball, tucked its wings against its body, and closed its eyes. Minho sat very still. He could feel the creature's warmth against his spine. He could feel its tiny heartbeat, fast and light, like a bird's. After a few minutes, the dragon began to purr, a deep, rumbling sound that Minho felt in his bones. He did not move for an hour. When Jiwoo came to check on him and saw the dragon sleeping on his back, she had to cover her mouth to stop herself from making noise. It chose that spot, she whispered. Why there? Minho smiled. I think it feels safe there, protected, like nothing can hurt it. You are its home now, Jiwoo said. You know that, right? It has chosen you. Minho reached back carefully and touched the sleeping dragon with one finger. It chirped softly but did not wake. Yes, he said. I know. That night, Captain Yuna announced to the whole crew that they had a new passenger. She explained where it came from and what it was. She told them about its unique way of feeding and asked everyone to be gentle and welcoming. The crew gathered in the common room to see the dragon. It sat on Minho's shoulder, looking at all the new faces with curious eyes. What is its name? Someone asked. Minho realized he had never thought about that. He looked at the dragon, at its violet scales and golden eyes, at the way it chirped and tilted its head. Biol, he said. It means star. The dragon chirped loudly, as if approving. And just like that, the tiny creature from the destroyed ship became part of the Horizon family. 2 weeks had passed since Biol joined the crew of the Horizon. The tiny dragon had become everyone's favorite companion. But its bond with Minho remained the strongest of all. Every morning, Minho woke up with Biol curled between his shoulder blades. Every night, the dragon climbed back to that same spot before closing its eyes. It had become their routine, as natural as breathing. Jiwoo was the first to notice how the crew had changed. She was working in the engine room when Tejo came in. The medical officer looked tired but happy. He was carrying a cup of tea and wearing a small smile. Have you seen them today? He asked. Jiwoo did not need to ask who he meant. Not yet. Why? Minho was on the bridge this morning. Biol was sleeping on his back as usual. The captain walked in, saw them, and just stood there for 5 minutes. She did not say anything. She just watched. Jiwoo laughed. Captain Yuna has gone soft. We all have, Tejo said. Yesterday, I caught Sungho from security making baby noises at Biol. Sungho, the man who once fought 3 aliens with his bare hands. It was true. Something about the tiny dragon brought out a different side of everyone. The hardest soldiers smiled when they saw it. The most serious scientists stopped to watch it play. Even the ship itself seemed lighter, warmer, more like a home. Minho noticed the change too. The corridors that once felt cold and empty now felt alive. People talked more. They laughed more. They found excuses to visit the bridge just to see Biol chirping on his shoulder. You have become the ship's entertainment, Jiwoo told him one afternoon. Minho was sitting in the cafeteria, eating his lunch while Biol explored the table. The dragon sniffed his food curiously, but showed no interest in eating it. It preferred to nibble on his fingers instead, absorbing the warmth from his skin. "I do not mind," Minho said. "If it makes people happy, that is good." "It is not just happiness," Jiwoo said thoughtfully. "It is something more. We have been in space for 3 years. 3 years away from Earth. From everything we knew. People were getting tired. I could see it in their eyes. But now, She watched as a group of crew members gathered nearby, watching Biol with soft expressions. "Now they have something to care about," she finished. "Something innocent and pure. Something that needs them." Minho understood. He felt it too. Before Biol, his days had blended together in an endless routine. Wake up. Work. Sleep. Repeat. The stars outside his window had started to look the same. The missions had started to feel meaningless. But now, every day brought something new. Biol learned new tricks. It discovered new places to explore on the ship. It formed connections with different crew members, each one unique. The dragon still slept only on Minho's back. That had not changed. But during the day, it wandered freely through the horizon, spreading its strange magic everywhere it went. One morning, Captain Yuna called a meeting. The senior officers gathered in the conference room. Minho sat at the table with Biol curled in its favorite spot between his shoulders. He could feel its tiny heartbeat against his spine, steady and calm. "We have received a message," Yuna said, "from the Galactic Council." Everyone straightened in their seats. The Galactic Council was the organization that governed the known galaxy. Representatives from dozens of alien species made decisions about trade, territory, and peace. Humanity had joined the council only 10 years ago, and they were still considered newcomers. "What do they want?" Jiwoo asked. Yuna's expression was serious. "They want to meet with us. Specifically, they want to meet Biol." Minho felt his stomach tighten. How do they know about Biol? Word travels fast in the galaxy. Someone must have mentioned it in a communication. Or perhaps they have other ways of knowing. Taeho leaned forward. "Do they know what species Biol is?" Yuna nodded slowly. "They do. And apparently, it is very important." The council said that creatures like Biol were thought to be extinct. They have not been seen for over 1,000 years. The room fell silent. Minho reached back and touched Biol gently. The dragon chirped and nuzzled his hand. "Extinct?" he repeated. "But I found it in a crashed ship. There must be others." "The council wants to investigate," Yuna said. "They are sending a delegation to meet us. 3 representatives from 3 different species. They will arrive in 5 days. The next 5 days were busy. The crew cleaned every corner of the ship. They prepared guest quarters. They reviewed protocols for meeting alien diplomats. Everyone wanted to make a good impression, but Minho spent most of his time with Biol. He sat in his quarters, the dragon sleeping peacefully on his back, and thought about what was coming. Would the council want to take Biol away? Would they claim the creature as galactic property? Would he have to fight to keep his friend? "I will not let them take you," he whispered. "No matter what they say." Biol chirped softly in its sleep, as if it understood. The delegation arrived on schedule. 3 ships docked with the horizon, each one carrying a different alien species. The first was called Ambassador Rena. She belonged to a species that looked like tall insects, with 4 arms and large compound eyes. Despite her strange appearance, her voice was musical and kind. The second was Ambassador Harak. He was from a species of stone-like beings, his body rough and gray, his movements slow and deliberate. His words came out like grinding rocks, deep and powerful. The third was Ambassador Lumi. She belonged to a species made entirely of light. She had no solid form, just a glowing shape that shifted and flowed like water. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. Captain Yuna greeted them formally in the docking bay. The crew stood in perfect rows, dressed in their best uniforms. Minho stood at the front, Biol visible on his shoulder. All three ambassadors stopped when they saw the dragon. Ambassador Rena made a strange clicking sound. Her compound eyes widened. "It is true," she said. "A heartfire dragon. Alive." Ambassador Harak rumbled deeply. "We thought your kind was lost forever." Ambassador Lumi's glow intensified. "This is a miracle. An absolute miracle." Minho felt uncomfortable under their gaze. He stepped forward slightly, putting himself between the ambassadors and Biol. "Its name is Biol," he said. "And it is my friend." The ambassadors exchanged looks. "Your friend," Ambassador Rena repeated. "How interesting." They moved to the conference room. Tea was served. Conversations began. Minho learned more about Biol's species than he had ever imagined. Heartfire dragons were once common in the galaxy. They lived alongside many different species, forming bonds with individual beings. They were symbols of peace and connection. Their presence calmed conflicts and healed old wounds. But 1,000 years ago, a great war swept through the galaxy. The Heartfire dragons were caught in the middle. Many were killed. Others fled to the far edges of space. Eventually, they disappeared completely. "We believed they were gone forever," Ambassador Lumi said, her light pulsing gently. "Their loss was the galaxy's greatest tragedy." "Why were they so important?" Jiwoo asked. Ambassador Harak answered. "Because they choose their companions based on one quality alone: the purity of their heart. A Heartfire dragon will only bond with a being who is truly good, truly gentle, truly kind." All eyes turned to Minho. He felt his face grow hot. "I am not. I am just a soldier. There is nothing special about me." Biol chirped loudly and pressed itself harder against his back. Ambassador Rena made her clicking sound again. It might have been a laugh. "The dragon disagrees. And Heartfire dragons are never wrong." The meeting continued for hours. The ambassadors asked many questions about how Minho found Biol, how he cared for it, how the crew had responded. They seemed fascinated by everything. Finally, Ambassador Lumi asked the question Minho had been dreading. "What will you do with the dragon?" Minho stood up. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. "Biol stays with me. It chose me. I chose it." That is the end of the discussion. The ambassadors looked at each other again. Then, to Minho's surprise, they all made sounds of approval. "We would not dream of separating you," Ambassador Rena said. "The bond between a Heartfire dragon and its chosen companion is sacred. Breaking it would be the greatest crime." Relief flooded through Minho. He sat back down, and Biol nuzzled against his neck happily. "But we do have one request," Ambassador Harak said slowly. "We would like to share this news with the galaxy, to let everyone know that the Heartfire dragons have returned, and that they have chosen to bond with humans." Captain Yuna looked at Minho. He nodded. "We would be honored," she said. That night, Minho stood at the observation window with Biol sleeping on his back. The stars stretched endlessly before him, beautiful and mysterious. "You are famous now," he told the dragon softly. "The whole galaxy knows about you." Biol purred in its sleep. Minho smiled. Fame did not matter. Politics did not matter. The only thing that mattered was the tiny heartbeat against his spine and the warmth that spread through his chest. He was home. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within days, everyone knew about the human ship that carried a Heartfire dragon. Everyone knew about Lieutenant Minho and the tiny creature that slept on his back. Messages flooded the Horizon's communication systems. Requests for interviews. Invitations to visit distant planets. Offers of trade and alliance. Some messages were curious. Some were demanding. A few were threatening. Captain Yuna handled most of them with her usual calm efficiency. But she could not hide her concern. "We have made enemies," she told her officers one morning. "Some species do not want humans to have this honor. They believe we are too young, too violent, too unworthy." Minho listened with a heavy heart. Biol sat on his shoulder, its tail wrapped loosely around his neck. The dragon seemed to sense his worry and pressed closer against him. "What kind of enemies?" Jiwoo asked. "The worst kind," Yuna said. "Jealous ones." The first attack came 2 weeks later. The Horizon was traveling through a region of space controlled by a species called the Vorn. They were a warrior race, tall and powerful, with gray skin and 4 eyes. They had been members of the Galactic Council for centuries and considered themselves superior to younger species, especially humans. Minho was on the bridge when the alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the walls. Crew members rushed to their stations. 3 Vorn warships approaching, someone reported. "They are charging weapons." Captain Yuna's voice was ice cold. "Open a communication channel." The main screen flickered, and a Vorn commander appeared. He was massive, even by Vorn standards. Scars covered his face, and his 4 eyes burned with hatred. "Human vessel," he growled. "You carry something that does not belong to you. Surrender the Heartfire Dragon, and we will let you live." Minho stepped forward. Beol chirped nervously on his shoulder. "The dragon is not property. It is my friend. It chose me freely." The Vorn commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. "A pathetic human thinks it is worthy of a Heartfire Dragon? Your species has existed for barely a moment. You are children playing with toys you do not understand." "The dragon disagrees," Minho said quietly. "And I trust its judgment more than yours." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die with it." The communication cut off. A moment later, the first missiles launched toward the Horizon. The next hour was chaos. The Horizon was not a warship. It was built for exploration, not combat. Its weapons were weak, its shields even weaker. Against 3 Vorn warships, it had no chance, but Captain Yuna did not surrender. "Evasive maneuvers," she commanded. "All power to engines. We run." The ship lurched as it changed direction. Missiles exploded nearby, shaking the hull. Crew members grabbed onto anything they could find to stay standing. Minho held Beol close to his chest. The dragon was trembling, its scales flickering between violet and gray. It made frightened sounds that cut into Minho's heart. "It will be okay," he whispered. "I will keep you safe. I promise." But the Vorn ships were faster. They caught up within minutes, surrounding the Horizon on all sides. There was nowhere to run. Another communication request appeared on the screen. Captain Yuna accepted it. The Vorn commander grinned. "Last chance, humans. Give us the dragon, or we destroy your ship." Yuna looked at Minho. There was a question in her eyes. He shook his head firmly. "We do not surrender our crew," she said. "And the dragon is crew." The commander roared with anger. "Then prepare to die." But before he could give the order to fire, something happened. Beol suddenly lifted its head. Its golden eyes began to glow brightly, brighter than Minho had ever seen. The dragon opened its tiny mouth and made a sound unlike any it had made before. A song. It was the most beautiful thing Minho had ever heard. The notes hung in the air like drops of honey, sweet and warm and impossibly pure. The sound filled the bridge, the corridors, the entire ship. It seemed to fill the empty space beyond, reaching out toward the Vorn vessels. Everything stopped. On the main screen, the Vorn commander froze. His expression changed. The hatred in his eyes faded, replaced by something else. Something softer. His 4 eyes grew wet. "What is this?" he whispered. Beol continued to sing. The song spoke of loss and hope, of darkness and light. It spoke of the connections between all living things, the invisible threads that bound the universe together. It was a song of peace. One by one, the Vorn soldiers lowered their weapons. Some of them began to cry. Even the commander, the scarred warrior who had threatened to destroy them all, stood with tears streaming down his gray face. When the song ended, silence filled the space between the ships. The commander looked at Minho. All the anger had left him. He looked tired, old, sad. I had forgotten, he said quietly. I had forgotten what it felt like. What? Minho asked. Peace, the commander said. True peace. We have been fighting for so long. Generation after generation of war and death. We forgot there was ever anything else. He looked at Biol with new eyes. The Heartfire dragons left us 1,000 years ago. They left because we became too violent, too full of hate. They could not survive in a galaxy of war. Minho looked down at the tiny dragon in his arms. Biol chirped softly and nuzzled against his chest. But this one stayed. The commander continued. It found you. It chose you. Do you understand what that means? Minho shook his head. It means there is hope, the commander said. If a Heartfire dragon can find a worthy companion in a species as young as humanity, then perhaps the galaxy can change. Perhaps we can all change. He straightened his shoulders. We will not attack you. We will escort you safely through our territory. And I will report to the Galactic Council that the Heartfire dragon is exactly where it should be. The Vorn ships powered down their weapons and moved into formation around the horizon. What had been enemies moments ago became protectors. Captain Yuna let out a long breath. That was unexpected. Minho laughed weakly. He was still shaking. Very unexpected. Biol climbed up to his shoulder and chirped happily, as if nothing had happened, as if it had not just stopped a battle with a song. Later that evening, the crew gathered in the common room. Everyone wanted to see Biol, to thank it, to simply be near it. The dragon sat in the center of a large table, accepting gentle touches and soft words from every crew member. Teho approached Minho with wonder in his eyes. I scanned Biol during the song, he said. The energy readings were incredible. It projected emotional frequencies that directly affected brain chemistry. It literally made the Vorn feel peace. Everity. Is that dangerous? Minho asked. No. The effect was temporary. But the memories will remain. The Vorn commander will never forget what he felt today. That is the real power of a Heartfire dragon. Not mind control, but heart opening. Minho watched as Biol played with a piece of string that someone had given it. Such a small creature. Such enormous power. Why me? He asked quietly. Why did it choose me? Teho smiled. I think you know the answer to that. But Minho did not know. He was just a soldier from Earth. He was not particularly brave or strong or wise. He was just ordinary. Captain Yuna appeared beside him. You are not ordinary, she said, as if reading his thoughts. I have served with many soldiers over the years. Most of them are hard, closed, focused only on the mission. But you are different. How? You stopped to save a wounded creature when no one was watching. You risked your career to protect it. You gave it warmth and love without expecting anything in return. She put a hand on his shoulder. That is not ordinary, Minho. That is extraordinary. Biol suddenly flew across the room and landed on Minho's back, settling into its favorite spot between his shoulders. It purred loudly. Yuna laughed. It was the first time Minho had ever heard her laugh like that. Full and warm and real. And apparently, she said, the dragon agrees. That night, Minho lay in his bed with Biol curled against his spine. He could feel the dragon's warmth spreading through his body, filling him with peace. The Vorn commander's words echoed in his mind. Hope. Change. A new future for the galaxy. It seemed impossible. How could one tiny dragon change anything? But then again, hope always seemed impossible until it happened. Minho closed his eyes and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. New enemies, perhaps. New dangers. But he was not alone. He had Biol. And Biol had him, and together they had an entire crew who loved them. That was enough. That was more than enough. 6 months had passed since the encounter with the Vorn. The horizon had become famous throughout the galaxy. Everywhere it went, species gathered to see the human ship carrying the last Heartfire dragon. And everywhere it went, something wonderful happened. Biol had grown. It was no longer a tiny creature that fit in Minho's palm. Now it was the size of a small cat, with scales that shimmered in a dozen different colors depending on the light. Its wings had strengthened enough for short flights, and it often circled the bridge before landing on Minho's back. But some things had not changed. Every night, without fail, Biol curled up between Minho's shoulder blades to sleep. The spot had become worn smooth from the dragon's constant presence. Minho's uniform had permanent creases in that exact shape. "You could sleep in your own bed," Minho told Biol one evening. He had prepared a soft nest of blankets in the corner of his quarters. "It is very comfortable. I made it just for you." Biol looked at the nest, then looked at Minho's back, then looked at the nest again. Its expression clearly said, "Why would I sleep there when I can sleep here?" Minho laughed and gave up trying. The horizon was on its way to the most important event of the year. The Galactic Council had called a grand assembly, a gathering of all known species. It happened only once every century. This time, the assembly would discuss humanity's place in the galaxy, and Biol would be there. "Are you nervous?" Jiwoo asked as she helped Minho adjust his formal uniform. "Very," he admitted. "Thousands of aliens will be watching, the leaders of every species in the known galaxy, and I will be standing there with a dragon on my back." "That sounds amazing," Jiwoo said. "It sounds terrifying." Biol chirped and nuzzled against his neck. Minho felt a wave of calm wash over him. The dragon always knew when he was worried. The Grand Assembly took place on a massive space station at the center of the galaxy. When the horizon arrived, there were already thousands of ships gathered nearby, ships of every size and shape, from tiny shuttles to enormous vessels that dwarfed everything around them. Minho had never seen so many different species in one place. They filled the enormous halls of the station, talking and arguing and negotiating. The noise was overwhelming. Captain Yuna led her crew through the crowded corridors. Aliens stopped and stared as they passed. Whispers followed them everywhere. "Is that the human with the dragon? Look at it. Look at how it sleeps on his back. I cannot believe such a young species was chosen." Minho kept his eyes forward and his expression calm. But inside, his heart was racing. The main assembly hall was the largest room Minho had ever seen. It could hold 1,000,000 beings, and it looked nearly full. Representatives from every species sat in floating platforms, arranged in great circles around a central stage. The human delegation was given a platform near the front. As they took their seats, Minho noticed many eyes fixed on him. On Biol, a voice boomed through the hall. "The Grand Assembly will now begin." The first hours were filled with boring reports and diplomatic speeches. Minho tried to pay attention, but his mind kept wandering. Biol had fallen asleep on his back, purring softly. He could feel its warmth through his uniform. Then the moment came. "We will now discuss the matter of humanity," the council speaker announced. "A young species that has been part of our community for only 10 years. A species that has now been chosen by a heartfire dragon." End quote. A Vorn representative stood up. Minho recognized him. It was the commander who had attacked the horizon 6 months ago. "I was once filled with hate for humans," the Vorn said. His voice was strong but humble. "I thought they were unworthy. I tried to take the dragon by force." The hall was silent. Everyone was listening. But the dragon sang to me. It opened my heart and showed me what I had forgotten. Peace, connection, hope. He looked directly at Minho. "The humans are not what I thought they were. They have something that many of us have lost. Gentleness, warmth, the ability to care without expecting anything in return." He sat down. Murmurs filled the hall. Ambassador Rena stood next. "I have studied the bond between Lieutenant Minho and the Heartfire Dragon. It is genuine. It is pure. The dragon chose him not because humans are powerful or advanced, but because they are good." Ambassador Harak spoke in his rumbling voice. "We have forgotten what the Heartfire Dragons taught us. We have become cold and suspicious. We fight over territory and resources. We have lost our way." Ambassador Lumi's light pulsed gently. "But perhaps it is not too late. Perhaps the dragon's choice is a message to all of us. Perhaps it is time to remember what matters." More representatives spoke. Most of them supported humanity. A few still objected, citing humans' violent history, their wars, their conflicts. The debate continued for hours. Finally, the council speaker raised her hand for silence. We have heard many opinions, but perhaps we should hear from the one at the center of this discussion. She looked at Minho. Lieutenant, would you speak? Minho's legs felt weak as he stood. Biol stirred on his back, lifted its head, and chirped encouragingly. He walked to the central stage. A million eyes watched him. A million beings waited to hear what he would say. Minho took a deep breath. I am not a diplomat, he began. I am not a politician or a leader. I am just a soldier. I fix things and follow orders and try to do my best. He paused. Biol climbed to his shoulder and looked out at the crowd. 6 months ago, I found this dragon in the wreckage of a destroyed ship. It was hurt and scared and alone. I did not save it because I wanted glory or power. I saved it because it needed help. He reached up and touched Biol gently. I do not know why it chose me. I am not special. There are billions of humans on Earth, and any one of them would have done the same thing. We are not perfect. We have made many mistakes. Our history is full of violence and pain. His voice grew stronger. But we also have love. We take care of each other. We adopt animals and give them homes. We cry when we see suffering. We build hospitals and schools and shelters. We try to be better than we were yesterday. Biol began to sing. The song filled the massive hall, reaching every corner, touching every heart. It was the same song that had stopped the Vorn attack, but longer, richer, deeper. It spoke of connection across distances, of hope in darkness, of the small acts of kindness that held the universe together. Beings throughout the hall began to weep. Ancient enemies turned to look at each other with new eyes. Old wounds began to heal. When the song ended, the silence was profound. Then, slowly, a single being began to clap. Then another. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The applause built into a roar that shook the walls. The council speaker wiped tears from her eyes. I believe we have our answer. Humanity has proven itself worthy. The Heartfire Dragon's choice is valid, and perhaps it is time we all learned from their example. The vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity was elevated to full membership in the Galactic Council. More importantly, a new initiative was launched. Species that had been enemies for centuries agreed to try again. Peace talks that had failed for generations were reopened, all because of a tiny dragon that slept on a human's back. Months later, Minho stood at the observation window of the horizon. The ship was finally heading home to Earth. After 4 years in space, he would see his family again. He would breathe real air and feel real sunlight. Biol was curled in its usual spot between his shoulders. It had grown even larger now, almost too big for that spot. But it still squeezed itself in every night, refusing to sleep anywhere else. Captain Yuna appeared beside him. The galaxy is changing, she said. Peace treaties being signed, trade routes being opened, former enemies becoming allies. Because of one little dragon, Minho said. Because of you and one little dragon, she corrected. It chose you for a reason, Minho. Never forget that. He smiled. I will not. Yuna looked at Biol with soft eyes. The dragon chirped at her and wagged its tail. She laughed and reached out to scratch its head. You know, she said, I used to think emotions were weakness. I thought a good captain had to be cold and hard. But that dragon taught me something different. What? That the strongest thing in the universe is love. That caring for others is not weakness, but power. That a tiny creature sleeping on a human's back can change everything. Minho felt Biol's warmth spreading through him. Its purring vibrated against his spine. I think you are right, he said. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars drift by. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was healing. Species were learning to trust each other again. Ancient hatreds were fading. A new era was beginning, and at the center of it all was a simple bond. A human soldier and a dragon from a destroyed world. Two lost souls who had found each other in the darkness of space. Minho reached back and touched Biol gently. The dragon made a happy sound and pressed closer against him. "Thank you," he whispered. "For choosing me," Biol chirped. In that moment, no translation was needed. The dragon's message was clear. "Thank you for being worth choosing." Outside, Earth grew larger in the window. Home was waiting, and they would face it together. As they would face everything from now on. A human, a dragon, and a love that could change the universe. The crew gathered behind them, watching the blue planet approach. Someone wiped their eyes. Someone else laughed softly. Captain Yuna smiled. "Welcome home, everyone." But as she looked at Minho and Biol, she knew the truth. Home was not a planet. Home was not a place at all. Home was the warmth between two hearts that had chosen each other. And that home would last forever.